Hey guys, so today's video is going to be part one of probably 2 or 3 videos on fixing up my old tractor. And I don't have no information on what brand this tractor is. I can't find no model number, serial number, or anything like that on it. I made another video on it before, just doing like a walk around. Had this motor run. It's a good motor, but it smokes a lot, and it's got a little too much oil in, and it needs changed. That's probably part of the problem with that. I took the belt off and measured it. 77 inches long. It's a half-inch belt or a 4L belt. So 4L770 was the belt I needed for it. I'm thinking about taking the blade off for right now. I'm gonna put it back on eventually, but I don't like the way they put it on there. It's the way it was when I got it. It's bolted and welded straight to the frame, so I'm gonna have to cut all that off. And I just think it'd be better. And it needs tires real bad, as you can see. You can almost see the air in these, but they do have tubes in it. They held up. I put air in them yesterday, and they stayed up overnight, so that's kind of surprising. But the wheel bearings are completely shot on these, so I probably have to change out the rims and everything. Hopefully the spindles are alright. This thing's got a weird steering system. I want to look at it a little bit before I tear into it. The goals for this video is to get the diesel engine on here. As you've seen in the previous videos, getting this motor ready. It's ready to roll. Just got to change the exhaust out because it's going to be pointing straight at me on there. It's going to be backwards as the engine that's on it. Got a lot to do. It's going to be painted, of course, at some point. It's going to be the last thing it's done. Get everything done mechanic wise. Pull the motor back off, then paint it and put it back together. I'm going to keep this old engine, of course. It's an old cast iron block Briggs. I love these old flatheads, but I just really want to do something diesel for a change, do something completely different. I'm going to redo the steering system on this 100%. See, the steering wheel's got play in it. You got this much play in the steering. It's just annoying. Part of the problem, you see that tire moving forward and back, that's how much plays in the wheel bearing. We'll look at that here in a minute. Let me get up underneath it and show you how the factory steering system works. See, it's got, if there's another part of the problem, it's wore out there, but it's got this pivot bar. It's got a bolt in the center, and it runs 2 tie rods. You can barely see it there. But I just don't like the way it's set up. It's got a lot of play in it, and plus the steering is really stiff too. I just don't like the way it's set up, so I'm going to try to do something better, but if not, we'll go back to this. I just thought I would try something better. And I got new pulleys, idler pulleys for the clutch. That one's not too bad. Sounds dry, but I might leave that one alone, but this one's wore out pretty bad. I got a new one for that. I like to try to get this pulley off this crank and use it on the new engine, but the back tires got pretty good tread on it, but they are dry rotting, but they're holding there, so that's surprising. But so for right now, we're going to leave them on there, try to get all I can out of them. But front tires definitely will have to be changed. Even if it's holding there, it won't take much to puncture that and puncture the inner tube. But we'll probably just, if I can get the wheel bearings, if I got something that'll work in there, then we'll just use them for testing right now. But I definitely will be changing them out. But anyway, this ain't going to be a complete step-by-step video on this modified restoration project. But I'm going to show as much as I can without making it boring. I think I'm going to go ahead and pull the motor off, kind of get an idea of how the diesel's going to look on there, and see what anything else needs to change first, and just go from there. I think that'll be the best thing to start with. This wasn't originally what I had in mind, but this is the steering box or steering gear assembly I picked out. It's the only one I could find that's all together and just bolts onto the frame. So I figured that might be better on this. This right here is an engagement lever for the deck belt. That's going to be coming off. You're probably eyeing the steering wheel here. This is actually a go-kart steering wheel. But it's about the only one I could find that would have a hub that would go on the end. I got the splines taped up to keep them getting tore up. This shaft's way too long. This actually came with this. It's supposed to be, you know, it's what would have went on there like that. This steering shaft is 5/8. I got a 5/8 ID sleeve. That's going to have to be, this is going to have to be cut down. This welded to it and drilled. And this slide in there and drilled through. Put a bolt or a pin through it. Now if this don't work, I'm still going to use the steering wheel and steering shaft where the steering wheel is wore out on it. I'll figure out a way to use that with the existing linkages, but I figured I'd just try this because, you know, starting over with new gears and stuff, it'd be a lot better. Yeah, not as heavy as that diesel is. Alright, it's just sitting there, it's not bolted yet. I got one bolt in it, back in the back there, it's already there, it stayed in the frame. I'm kind of using that as a position. But the bolts lengthwise are in the right spacing, but the ones widthwise, this motor's a little bit more narrow as far as the bolt pattern goes, so I'm going to have to, you see where the other one was at. So this one will go in, but this one's going to have to be drilled. Same for the back, so it's not that big a deal, but I was hoping for a bolt on, but you know, never quite works that way. I got the belt on here just to get an idea if the tension is going to be close. And the clutch does seem to be working. You see, you get complete disengagement and engagement. I'm going to probably have to put a tighter spring on there. I figure that's going to slip, especially with the extra torque of this engine. But now you can kind of see what I was talking about, the exhaust on it. It's pointing right directly at you. So I could either, the way this frame's made, I could probably route it down here and just have it exit at the bottom, but you know, I can't do that. That'd be too simple for me. So factory muffler's coming off, bad as I hate to, because I like the way it's made, except for this part of it. I don't care much for that. So I'll be coming out here with the tractor muffler and a flapper or rain cap, whatever you want to call it. But that's where I'm at for that. I just want to get the motor in here and get an idea of how much space I'm going to have for everything. And I really don't know if that steering thing is going to work or not. So I may just have to attempt to rebuild what's already here. Because the main issue is going to be the tie rod. If I do it like that, I can just leave this on there if I want. So that might be what I do. Just try to get some slop out of the steering. Put that new steering wheel and shaft on it for sure. And go from there. But I just wanted to test fit the motor. You see I got one bolt sitting through the block there just to kind of reference everything. But I think it's going to work. It's just going to take a little bit of work. I've got a little bit of a clearance issue here I just noticed. So I may actually have to bump the motor over some more. And this new pulley on the crank, I think it's a 3-inch. I'll put a note in if I'm wrong. Is actually just a little bit bigger than what the inside pulley on that other motor was. So not by much, but this is made for the 1/2-inch belt. The other one was a 5/8 belt. So the main issue with my steering, this is too big of an assembly to mount in here between the engine and where it's at. I have to, it just really ain't no room. And the other issue is going to be the drag link, or the tie rod that comes from here going into the spindle. See, the way it is now, everything's concealed up underneath it, so I'm probably just going to have to rebuild what's there, as bad as I hate to. I don't really want to do that, but it looks like I'm not going to have an option. Alright guys, I got the whole steering system tore apart. I'm on the floor here now. You can kind of see how it's set up. You got 2 tie rods going to each wheel. Then you got your pivot point, which is right here. There's a bolt that's stuck in the frame. This nut goes on from the bottom, the washer goes on there. Then this goes up through this for it to move on the gear there. And this is the steering gear from the steering wheel. I'll go into these gears here. And this just had a brass bushing on there, and I'm going to try to convert all this to ball bearing just to make everything heavier duty, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it on every little part or not. If I can, it's going to make it a lot better and smoother and last a lot longer. So we're just going to have to see what I got and go from there. Another point of play is all these ball joints are basically wore out. I have some, I don't know if I got the right ones or not, so we'll have to go from there. And where the steering wheel goes through, they just got this plastic bushing, which appears to be the same as like on a lot of old MTD motors. It's got on the spindles on the top and bottom. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill this out and put a ball bearing in here. It's 5/8 ID, and I'm either going to tack weld it in a couple spots, that ring that's on here, or just try to get a screw in there on the side just to keep the bearing itself from spinning in the frame here. And that's going to make that steering super smooth, especially if I can do one here and on the bottom. That's going to make that steering a lot smoother right there and hold up longer too. I'm also changing out the 2 tie rod ends. I only got 2 that'll fit it, so I'm putting the 2 new ones on the inside here. That way I can change the other ones easier later. They're outside closer, easier to get to. But that's my theory behind that. You can tell these are factory, and look like one of the outside ones have been changed at some point. My new ones didn't come with hardware, so I gotta reuse the old nut and washer. I'm giving. I usually run these until they fall apart, but I'm trying to take up any amount of play in the steering as possible. Caliper on that, and it said 1 3/8. That's as far as this goes, so I probably have to take the whole thing all the way through. But perfect, it's fitting snug, it's good. This is going to work perfect. Bearing fit in there perfect. Snug as can be, you can't even move. I'm sure you can pound it back out, but that's going to work perfect. That way the whole bearing won't be spinning in the frame. Alright, so this is pretty much the industry standard right now on the steering wheels. This is the shaft, as you can see, it's spline. This hub will go in there just like that. Then the nut, of course. And the only thing I didn't get would be a cap that would go on here, right here, then the bolt, you come through it and bolt, and then you have a chrome cap going there. But since this is a tractor, you know, I'm not going to mind seeing the bolts and stuff. But on the go-kart or something, I definitely want to do it like that. But for this, it'll be fine. This kit also comes with the lock collar and these pitman arms for go-kart style steering, which I'm not going to be using that. Here's what the steering shaft's looking like. You can see here, like I said, you can get a cap that'll cover all that if it's necessary. I'm not too worried about this. I'm going to use a lock collar to space it up off the bearing a little bit. And the shaft's going to have to be cut down because it's way too long. Alright guys, there's just no way I can use the new one that came off that steering assembly. I'm going to have to reuse the old one, but the problem is the old steering shaft is 1/2 inch and the new one's 5/8. I couldn't find a 5/8 drill bit, so I made one. I took a step bit. I don't recommend doing this, but it works in a pinch, I guess. If I grind it off to the maximum size of the 5/8, guess what, it worked. I drilled it out. And I drilled out this bushing too, goes on the bottom, so I think it's going to work. Alright, so I just drilled out the bottom bracket where the steering shaft comes in. So I fit another one of these bearings at the bottom. It was fed with a brass bushing down here, and I figured why not just do it right and put this in there so it'll last. And if the bearing goes out, it won't wear out the shaft nearly as bad as this will, so I can just change bearings out in a few years instead of shaft and everything. Okay, so I drilled 3 different holes in the steering shaft. This is the one I need right now. This way I got a little bit of an adjustment. It'll be easier to do it now. That way it's that much done. I just drilled these 1/4 inch, put a 1/4 inch bolt in it for now. I might use a clevis pin later on, but for right now, a bolt's going in it. Alright guys, the steering's done now. The steering wheel looks out of place on us, but I still need to adjust the alignment on it a little bit. It's in a little bit, but the problem with the tires, the wheel bearings, or the little plastic bushings are completely gone in it. I don't have any on hand, can't find no used ones, so I'm going to just, it's not going to be used very much until I get the parts in, so it'll be fine for right now. It's been the way it has been since I've had it anyway. I just cleaned this up a little bit and drilled the 2 extra holes. Hopefully I got them in the right spot and the motor will bolt right up. I'm not going to do no painting until it's all completely done. Then I'm going to pull the motor and the fenders and everything back off of it to paint it. That way, I don't have to mask nothing off and all that. I hate doing that. I'd better just shoot it and be done with it. There, I drilled this out so the key switch will fit. I probably am going to be putting an oil pressure gauge on it because this engine does have an oil pump and the fitting to hook it up. Do that, and probably just a voltage gauge, I think. Alright, so I was getting ready to go ahead and bolt it up, and I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and change the exhaust out on it. Cause I know I'm not going to want to run with that pointing straight at me. It's actually a pretty new one. This is an IH1 Stanley brand. I'll probably be painted eventually. I figured I was going to hold off on this till I get it bolted on the tractor. I said, well, just go ahead and do it, because this is going to be pointing directly at me if I don't. I am going to keep this in case I want to put it back on and use the engine for something else. I like the way the muffler is made. So you got, looks like 4 bolts to hold the muffler. When you get your 2 here on the flange, you get 2 down here. You can actually see on the video. We're going to take them out first. A 12 millimeter. I actually had them pretty tight. Surprised me. Then you got these 2 bolts here on the flange. I kind of hate taking a factory muffler off something, especially something that costs this much, but I really want a tractor style muffler on it. Like I said, I'm going to keep this, and that way if I ever want to go back to it, I can. I was afraid of that. There we go. Yeah, exhaust, the gasket stayed intact. That's good. It's got like a vent here too. Didn't know that. I've seen some people cut these off here and use this as the manifold, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you need to do, go for it. And I made this up a long time ago for another engine. I had these flanges cut for me at the machine shop when I was going to trade school. So I welded these 1-inch pipe on here and drilled it out. And I thought for sure it would fit, but I guess I'm going to have to drill it some more. But it's about the right size pipe, as you can see, so that won't be an issue. Alright, so I just notched one side. I should have done that on both sides instead of making the holes bigger, but I didn't think about it at the time. But no big deal. I'm kind of concerned about this vent part right here. I didn't know it was made like that, so if that's an issue, we'll have to try to figure out a plan for that, won't we? We'll get a couple bigger washers here. Yeah, that'll work good. And the lock washers. And a nut. Maybe. The only other modification I may be doing to this is adding a glow plug to it, to the intake manifold. I mentioned that in the previous video, but I haven't decided if I'm going to do it yet. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Now with this, you can put any muffler you want on it. Put the lock ring on first. It's not going to go all the way around, I don't think. Tighter the better, so it won't vibrate loose so much. Now I'm going to lock this ring down. Now from there you can put your regular tractor style muffler in there and then lock that down and you'll be ready to go. I'm going to wait till I get it on the tractor to finish putting it on, and then we'll look at it here in a minute. Well guys, there you have it. That's the how I set the exhaust up on this. And the only leak I got is right here where I get them clamps, and I might end up actually welding that to seal that up. It's not really bothering me too bad, but I think it's going to work pretty good. And a couple of tips: don't forget your lock rings. If you don't want to do that, you can weld that, and you'll only be able to take it off with that, and it'll be the only type of muffler you'd have. But that is an option. Also, you may want to put like a brace or something on here somewhere. Like if this had a hood, or like if this had some type of frame or something, you could, weld something on like right here and run it off to it. That way, if you hit this with something, it's going to bend it and it could potentially bust the block or something. So you could even run something down just to the frame or something, just to have a little more support if you want. And it's highly recommended, because it can get bent or broke or something, Alright guys, so we got the motor on here. I got 3 bolts holding it on right now because I couldn't get I need a spacer on that last one where the motor is bigger than what the frame was designed for. And this bolt here is not really doing anything. It is tight, but it's not really doing anything. I just stuck it in there so I won't lose it. Belt comes off. It did that before. I need to fix this belt guard. Maybe add another one to this back pulley. I didn't change the pulleys out yet either, so that play in there, I'm just trying to hold off on that. The belt is slipping, which don't surprise me, and I had some smoke coming off of it. We'll try to get another clip of that here in a second going up a hill. But it actually did a wheelie with me too. It's got some torque to it. The steering still ain't exactly what I expect out of it. As you can see, there's just a little bit of play in it, and that's in you can see the spindle moving down there, so that's where the wheel bearings are so bad. It's actually, the spindle's moving in the wheel, in the rim, but it's 100% better than it was, and it's a lot smoother. Alright, so just a quick update on it. You see a bright red new belt on there. The belt came off the rear pulley and got stuck in there so bad I had to cut the belt off. It about had it anyway. It had some chunks out of it. I went ahead and put a new pulley here. I was going to change that one, but I got to get the right size. I need a little bit bigger than the one I had. But that's about probably 20 minutes of riding on this belt, and there's no major wear, so I think it's going to be alright. Need to come up with a better belt guard too. Maybe one for that pulley and maybe one up here too. But overall it seems to be doing pretty good. I put I zip tied me a temporary headlight on there. And so now I just gotta get some more parts and finish up the steering on it, get the bearings. You're probably just gonna get new rims and tires and everything for it. That's what I'm thinking. So that'll be the next thing you see.